Kelvin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya. Now, what really happened in this fight? One of the best fights I've ever seen. One of the greatest rounds of all time in round 5. But there was so much that went on into this fight. Patterns, there were a couple patterns out there. There was a couple back and forth technical exchanges with each other, especially slipping abilities. And that's really what this fight came down to. A lot of slipping, a lot of feinting, and a lot of baiting, pretty much. And that is what Adesanya really excels at in all of his fights. And Gastelum was kind of playing with him in those areas. So it pretty much came down to when Adesanya took the orthodox stance, which is the stance he took most in the fight, and there's a reason for that. In the first round, he was switching a lot more. In the second round, he started switching a little bit. But then in the third, fourth, and fifth, you saw him take the orthodox stance almost the entire time. And that is because he found the left hand of Gastelum a lot easier to slip, pull, and counter with his right hand, though. In order to bait Gastelum into coming in with that 1-2 or one left overhand, he's going to want to stay in orthodox stance and allow Gastelum to get the outside foot, right? Which is what Gastelum does to everybody. I mean, if you give him that opportunity, he's going to take it. And he did it almost every single time. But most of the time, whenever Gastelum came in with the one and left overhand, through this, Adesanya would land a devastating right hand. Now, this wasn't always the tactic he was looking for, but it was much better than what he was doing before. In the orthodox stance, before, Adesanya was just shooting out the naked right straight, and Gastelum was slipping on the outside of that punch and trying to make his way in or find an opportunity to attack behind that. So that was putting Adesanya into a dicey situation. So it all came down to who was going to slip the power shot of each other. And Adesanya started to pick that up a little bit later and carry that into the third, fourth, and fifth rounds, where he was being more effective with it. So to initiate it and give Kelvin Gastelum a sense of opportunity, what he would do is he would stay in orthodox, knowing that's what Gastelum's going to do. He's going to try to get the outside foot, which is good for him because he's going to counter it. And he will lean in. He will lean forward to make that sense of opportunity a lot stronger in Kelvin to fall into the bait, and he did it multiple times throughout the fight. So Kelvin usually come in with the right hand, sometimes parry the lead hand, sometimes throw a jab, sometimes throw a right hook, but it was all meant for the left hand to land, the left overhand, especially because Adesanya is way taller, right? It's going to be a little bit hard to connect with the left straight meaningfully, and even when he did, the power really isn't all there. Because he is punching up, he has to extend a little bit more to connect effectively. But the left overhand is meant for taller fighters, of course, or bringing them down. That's the kind of analogy you want to think of. By doing this, Adesanya had the answer to Kelvin Gastelum's best attack, and it wasn't even the left hand that was landing. It was the right hand that gave Adesanya more problems. Just in general, the jab was very hard for Adesanya to see coming, right? It's very low, and Gastelum's already short as he is. So it's a little bit harder to get the peripheral vision as well as the feeling of that lead hand of Kelvin Gastelum because it is hanging so low, and he pops it up really quickly. And when he pops it up, he's usually moving forward behind it. So he's covering distance very quickly and getting to the target very quickly. And this kind of threw off Adesanya, and he elaborated on that after the fight. And even the right hook. When Adesanya would take the southpaw stance to exit away, and when he usually did that is because he made some sort of mistake with his footwork, he would try to exit away in southpaw and usually post with his right hand. Right, create as much distance as possible to get away from Kelvin Gastelum and this terrible position he was in. But Kelvin would usually seek out and land the right hook, and actually one time connected clean on Adesanya. Now, when Kelvin was able to slip on Adesanya's right hand, it usually got very scary for Adesanya. Just because of the position, because these are the exact same positions that he knocked out Michael Bisping in. Michael Bisping threw a 1-2, kind of overextended on his right hand, which Adesanya does too. It is pretty weird to see Adesanya overextend on his right straights almost every single time because of the fighter that he is. He doesn't usually overextend on anything, but it's usually that right straight. Even against Derek Brunson, he overextended on his right straight and almost got taken down because of it. But here, whenever he threw his right straight in, he almost bumps into Kelvin every single time, and he usually has to frame in with his forearm or his elbow to create some space, as well as he can use it as a block for the left hand of Kelvin Gastelum. And he can also post on it if he wants to create distance away from Kelvin. But Kelvin always got that angle where he can just come back with that 1-2 that he landed on Michael Bisping every single time. And if it wasn't going to be that, Kelvin would sometimes go for the double leg, go for a takedown. It usually just put Adesanya in a very bad position whenever he initiated with a naked right hand. And in the second round, you notice Adesanya start going for body kicks a lot more. He start working the body of Gastelum. You heard before the fight that Adesanya was saying that Kelvin has a soft body and that's a good target. Start mixing up leg kicks, and even on Gastelum's leg kicks, people don't remember Gastelum throwing many kicks, but whenever he did throw a few of them. He paid for it almost every single time by the right hand of Adesanya. So the leg kicks from Kelvin Gastelum was a no-no. He was paying for them every single time. But other than that, let's get to the moments of the fight here. Even though those are some of the patterns of the fight, most of it was just pretty much exchanges, positions, and they're all very, very different from each other. So let's go to the right hook that Kelvin was able to land in the first round. I don't usually get to do this kind of breakdown. I used to do it all the time before, but this should be pretty interesting. So Kelvin moves in. He traps the lead hand of Adesanya. Adesanya in the orthodox stance this time. And you could see Kelvin uses it to give Adesanya the look like he's going to go on the outside and look for a left overhand. Look at his body position. This is almost the same thing if you saw his left hand looping in the air for a left overhand and Adesanya is leaning away. But Kelvin is using this just to cover a little bit distance and see what Adesanya is going to do here. So he moves his head to the left again and almost squares up on Adesanya. But here's the thing, when you square up, you're able to move your head and body horizontally a lot better. And because of this, Kelvin was able to slip on the outside of Adesanya's right straight like he always did throughout the entire fight. But this is the first round, so this is one of the first times you see that happening. And look at the legs and the body position of Adesanya. He's almost like crossing his legs and he overextended with his right straight. Now he has a couple options here. He can switch into southpaw and get away, which is probably his best move. He could try to retract his entire upper body, twist it back into his orthodox stance, or you could try to move horizontally or something right from here, which is a very risky thing to do. Getting countered by hooks from Kelvin Gastelum is a very terrible thing to happen. So he goes to southpaw, and Kelvin is going for that right hook. He sees Adesanya out of position, goes for the right hook, able to glance off toward the eyebrow of Adesanya, as Adesanya is going to post on Kelvin, try to retreat away. Now that post is working both ways. Yes, it's helping Adesanya create distance, but he's trying to leave that distance, right? He's using that as like a minimum. He doesn't want to get any closer to Kelvin Gastelum, but Kelvin is using that arm to measure his own distance, right? And Kelvin moving forward like this, he's going to move faster than Adesanya is able to get away, just because of how their form is in escaping and entering. And you can actually see Kelvin getting a little bit closer. The hand gets a little bit past the shoulder of Kelvin Gastelum. Adesanya tried to create an angle and he moved his post away. Now Kelvin really has nothing in his way to connect with the right hook. So he grabs into the hand of Adesanya, pulls him in kind of, and throws that right hook and connects clean and drops him. One of the hardest shots in the entire fight right here. Kelvin tries to follow up with a left hand, which would have probably decapitated Adesanya. I mean, he threw everything into that punch. And now we move into the second round, and this is where Adesanya is going to be able to drop Kelvin Gastelum. And just like in the first round where Adesanya got out of position with his footwork, same thing here happens to Kelvin Gastelum. So Adesanya orthodox stance, Kelvin tries to take the outside foot and throws in a jab, kind of masking in his step as well as setting up the left hand. He connects with it and he lost his footing when he was going to land with his lead foot. Probably rolled his ankle or something, hard to tell because of the timer, but lost his footing. Adesanya is leaning away and attempting to escape, and Kelvin's tripping up. He's trying to post down and stick his landing, but he's also trying to land the left hand at the same time. I mean, he's committed. Adesanya has his right hand up and he's pulsing with his left hand. He's protected here. There's pretty much no way Kelvin's gonna do anything to Adesanya in this position. He throws the left hand. It lands toward the chest of Adesanya as he turns in for his own right hand to counter Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin's trying to retract back into his stance after tripping and gets caught clean by this right overhand from Adesanya. Did not see the punch coming at all. I mean, this probably is the hardest shot Kelvin's ever taken in his entire career by this moment. And then we head toward the end of the third round. And here's something where I think Adesanya, if he goes back and looks at this exchange, he would probably think the same thing here. He starts moving to his left in the orthodox stance, and he's trying to get the outside foot, but he's lining up his right hand. Now, it's the same right hand that Kelvin's been slipping the entire night, so I thought he should have mixed it up a little bit and probably throw a right high kick, because if you can get someone to think you're throwing a right straight because they keep slipping it, and you throw a right roundhouse kick to the head, I mean, you pretty much are going to end the night for the opponent, right? Because they're going to slip on the outside of the right hand, and here comes the shin to intercept that head movement. Look at that situation. If he was able to fake the right hand, which he's always able to do, which is something he does a lot, and throw up the right high kick, I mean, this fight could have been a wrap by round 3, but it's just something to see in hindsight, right? And it's something I know is 100% in Adesanya's arsenal. And then we move toward the end of the fourth round, and this is one of the hardest shots in the entire fight, which Kelvin was able to land on Adesanya. Now, we all know about Adesanya's pull counter. He likes to lean in to give that sense of opportunity to Kelvin, all that sort of stuff, right? Stays in orthodox. Kelvin plays that tactic here. So you see Adesanya leaning forward, and you know what he's going to do. He's done this almost every single time in the fight to pull counter Kelvin's left hand. So Kelvin moves forward. He tries to parry the lead hand of Adesanya away, and he kind of switches. It's almost like he's going to throw a Superman punch of some sort, right? He double switches, almost like what Jorge Masvidal did to Darren Till. Adesanya pulls and posts with his left hand to measure distance, and he's looking for his right hand counter, because Kelvin showed him the left hand. But Kelvin showed him the left hand to mask in his head kick, which is something Adesanya did not see coming. I mean, who really would have expected Kelvin Gastelum to throw a left high kick behind a fake left hand that he throws the entire fight and in every single fight? So Adesanya sees the left hand, it falls short, he's able to pull on it, and Kelvin's throwing up the left high kick, and Adesanya throws in the right straight and just gets caught clean by the shin of Gastelum. And it wasn't even full power. It didn't even go all the way through. It kind of slapped Adesanya while it was coming up, and it stopped, right? There was no real follow through with the kick, and Adesanya got rocked by this kick to the point where Kelvin just moves forward and throws in a left straight, naked left straight, which is something that Adesanya is very much capable of slipping and defending, but he gets caught clean by it. No head movement, nothing. No footwork, nothing. Kelvin starts to chase him down, throws some right hooks in there, traps Adesanya to the cage, and Adesanya is actually kind of close to the corner, right? Not just the cage, but the corner. That is exactly where Kelvin Gastelum wants him. He starts faking some jabs, and he goes in for the double leg. I know this is the moment where a lot of people got upset at Kelvin Gastelum. He wasted an opportunity. It showed a little bit low fight IQ here. He allowed Adesanya to rest a little bit. And not only did he allow him to rest, he didn't even finish the takedown. So it was pretty much a meaningless attack here. He should have thrown his hands a little bit more, I believe. Whenever a fighter is hurt like this, even maybe not throwing up to the head, you could throw him to the body, throw some leg kicks to knock off their focus, right? Because their focus is not 100%. And if you can knock it off to the legs by throwing some kind of leg kick and then come up to the head, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. That is something you saw John Jones do to Daniel Cormier. He threw a head kick at him. DC was moving back, rocked and everything, and his body was instinctively defending headshots. And what does John Jones do? He goes and kicks out the leg. And then he throws in a flying knee to the body. And then he finishes it off with a ground and pound. I mean, that's the kind of thing you should be doing in these kind of situations. But Adesanya was able to get away. He moved out to his left. And you got to give Adesanya credit for the warrior that he is, the warrior spirit that he showed, because he redirected and threw a right straight to the body, which connected clean on Gastelum and slowed him down at that moment. I mean, full-on extension. So Gastelum probably should have worked the body, went up to the head, but no, that's what Adesanya did on the defense, which is crazy. And then we move here into the 5th round, and this is where Adesanya is able to get that guillotine and then eventually almost get the triangle. So Gastelum just shoots in, right? Doesn't really set it up at all, and he gets a hold of Adesanya. Grabs into a single leg, doesn't really drive it that much, doesn't really commit with it too much, and just tucks it in tight and hangs on in there. So Adesanya is able to grab onto a guillotine and then starts to go high elbow with it, which is a very leveraging guillotine, and forces Kelvin to let go of the single leg. I mean, I love the high elbow guillotine personally. Probably my absolute favorite submission to ever go to. And whenever I see fighters go to it, I mean, I get super excited. And Adesanya is just absolutely cranking with this, to the point where he kind of cranks too much and knocks Kelvin off balance. You don't really want to turn the opponent all the way over. You just want to have your grip in tight and try to get your elbow with the choking arm, your elbow kind of toward under their chin, you know what I'm saying? But because of the angle he has the guillotine in, he's kind of turning Kelvin's shoulder while he's cranking with his other arm and throws Kelvin Gastelum to the ground. He follows Kelvin to the ground, Kelvin shells up, and you can see Kelvin hook around the left leg of Adesanya, as well as holding on tight to Adesanya's right arm with his own right arm. And he rolls with this, so he has two opposite posts that he can use to completely turn over the entire body. The left leg, the right arm, he just needs those two to roll with him, and he can eventually get on top. Gets into the guard, but doesn't establish it quick enough to the point where Adesanya almost gets a triangle choke, but Kelvin's pushing down on the left thigh of Adesanya. But Adesanya starts to switch up the grip the other way, and then switches it up again to the point where Kelvin is lingering his arm on top of Adesanya, which is something you never want to do in this kind of position. But Adesanya pulls him over again, and Kelvin's able to get out of the position. And in the 5th round, Adesanya started to stick on Gastelum a little bit closer than before. In the 4th round, Gastelum was messing with the range a little bit for Adesanya, I think maybe after that head kick. So Adesanya started sticking in a little bit closer to the point where Gastelum couldn't even slip the right straight anymore, or at least as effectively as he was. Because when you close in the distance on Gastelum, you take away his distance to see the punch in time, right? he's going to see the punch coming a little bit too late to the point where he's just going to get connected by it or glanced. And that's what you see in this moment here. For an example, Adesanya steps on the outside, orthodox stance as you notice, and turns his hips, lifts his right foot, looks like he's going to throw a right straight, and Gastelum is ready for it. Gastelum leans back just a little bit to see the punch coming, and then he's going to try to slip on the outside of it. But no, Adesanya actually steps forward with his right foot. Instead of just shooting out the right hand, he steps forward to close in the distance a little bit and moves his left foot a little bit forward and now throws out the right straight. Look how close he is to Gastelum. I mean, this is Gastelum's punching range, if not on the inside of Gastelum's punching range. And you can see Gastelum tries to slip on the outside of the right straight and gets caught by it. And as usual from Adesanya's right straight, he kind of moves in behind it because of the momentum of the punch and how much he carries himself forward, gets into the parallel stance. They're both kind of in the parallel stance, and Gastelum moves his left foot back to get into his southpaw stance. And that's where Adesanya kind of pivots, or should I say redirects from his parallel stance and just looks to his left. So now he's back into orthodox and throws out another right straight. So he doubles up on the right straight and connects twice clean. I mean, rattles Gastelum's head with that punch. That parallel stance, man, whenever you fall into it by accident, which usually happens, you still got to know the footwork placement from those accidental parallels. Gastelum moved back and he didn't really defend himself at all with his head or anything. He just moved back and didn't really know where he was. And then we move here and Gastelum moves forward. He tries to trap the lead hand of Adesanya so he can make his way in. And again, Adesanya's orthodox. Grabs into the lead hand of Adesanya, creates that opening for his left hand over the top. Adesanya is leaning away. He pulls on the punch, effectively moves his left foot back, which is kind of weird, right? You don't normally see that. You kind of see the guy in stance always and lean away and then come back. But no, he brings his left foot back and sits. And look how tall he is. He sits on that right straight. It connects flush on Gastelum, as Gastelum reached out a little bit too much like he usually does with his left hand. But man, that's a testament to Gastelum's chin. I mean, he just ate that punch and stood there. He's in the parallel stance again. Adesanya is an orthodox. He has a very strong base under him, throws a left hook, and with the parallel stance, remember what I said before, when you're in the parallel stance, you can move horizontally, but not so much linearly. So he moves horizontally to his left, away from the left hook, and Adesanya follows up with a right shovel hook, which connects on Gastelum. And remember in the 5th round, what Adesanya loves to do, he likes to stay in close on Gastelum. Look how close they are. And he's looking for the right straight, and Gastelum tries to slip on the outside of it, but because of the short range, he's not used to that distance yet, fighting Adesanya. He tries to slip on the outside of it and gets dropped by this right hand. And then the crazy exchange from Adesanya at the end, where he steps forward, widens his stance, goes under the right hand of Kelvin Gastelum and lands a right straight to the body, leans away to oversee the area. Gastelum is moving back. He's standing up tall. You can see he's a little bit tired as well as rocked. So Adesanya sees it from pulling back a little bit, and now he puts himself forward back into the stance, throws out a jab, measures, and moves forward behind the jab as Gastelum is just casually walking backwards. He has no defense up, and Adesanya lands a right straight which connects clean. As Adesanya is tracking down Gastelum, not giving him any rest, which is showing high fight IQ, of course. He's not going to go for a takedown or something like that. He starts showing the left hand in Gastelum's face, gets his eyes on it. Gastelum tries to parry it a little bit, and he ducks as he sees Adesanya torque a little bit counterclockwise, which makes it look like he's going to throw a right hand. So Gastelum ducks and moves his head on the outside. He most likely thought it was going to be a right straight, but Adesanya throws an uppercut but doesn't commit with it. Of course, in hindsight, he would have been able to connect with this punch, but Adesanya is very carefully looking at his openings here and looking at the reactions of Gastelum. Knowing that he ducks so far low, Gastelum has to rise up again, right? So Adesanya puts his hand on Gastelum's head to measure for his right hand. Gastelum tries to put his hands up, but not to his head, more to block the punch from coming to him, which is ill-advised, and just gets dead blowed by this right hand and dropped badly. So that's the end of the breakdown, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. I mean, this is an absolute great fight. I can't wait for Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. I cannot wait for Kelvin Gastelum versus whoever at this point, because he is still a top 5 fighter, I believe. And my next video is probably going to be a breakdown of the main event, so be on the lookout for that. It might come out tomorrow or Tuesday. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.